So this viral video of this meet cute immediately made me think of this. So bear with me, okay? I love meet cutes, and I think some long distance relationships can work. If you know my content, you know that I am constantly, oh, I love this shirt, y'all. I am constantly warning women about international relationships and how women almost always get screwed. And I'm not doing this to scare people. I'm doing this to give a lot of information so women don't get talked into destroying their lives over a meet cute. That if women end up being with men in an international relationship, that you protect yourself and you make sure that you are not going to be literally held hostage in a country that you don't want to be in anymore. And I'm talking about the Hague Convention and how it is literally used by abusers to keep women trapped in countries with men who abuse them and their children. And you literally cannot leave. You cannot leave. So I'm going to tie all this together, but I just want to start off by saying I really, like, when I first saw that video, and I'm going to link it in the bio of, like, I was like, oh my God, that's so cute. And then they asked this couple who just met, and they were like very excited about each other. And it was just a really cute exchange. And then at the end, when they said, well, where are you from? He said Atlanta, and asked where she's from. And she said Warsaw. And I was like, oh God, oh no. Because chances are she will get screwed. Unless that man is prepared to sacrifice a whole lot, she will get screwed. She will be the one who's expected to sacrifice. She is the one that the laws are going to be used against her if she ever changes her mind. She is the one whose financial security, her physical security, her immigration status, her ability to protect her children if she decides to have them, in addition to all kinds of other things. All of that are the risk of those. A woman who's married to a man, or I don't even know what the statistics are, but given as someone who has immigrated to another country, married to a French man, do not have kids with him, moved here for myself and met him after I moved here. So I wasn't, I didn't have to give up anything to come here. I want to be here. And I decided that before I met him. I'm also a member of the immigrant expat community, and I see horror stories. Story after story after story after story, and it's always women. Every once in a while there's a man who gets stuck in this system, but it's always women who get trapped in countries they don't want to be in anymore because they were lied to by their partners, and then they sacrificed a bunch of stuff, and then that one decision is irreversible. Irreversible. Please take this seriously. So I'm going to show you something about Kate that people understand, like, what I'm talking about, and then I'm going to show you the Hague Convention and why I want women to seriously consider all of this before you ever move somewhere for a man. And honestly, from all of the women who follow me who are, separated from their husbands or whatever, I mean, you can't even leave the county without men's permission a lot of times. This isn't just an international issue, but I am telling you, it is like all of those issues on amphetamines. When you take it to the international level, it is life-threatening decisions. When you have this, oh, I'm going to marry a French man, I'm just going to move to France. They have free healthcare there and French culture, la 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 la. You're going to be stuck. You're going to hate your in-laws, and you will not ever be able to leave France, and you're probably going to be alone. Okay, now, it does work out sometimes. It does work out sometimes. I know people that it worked out for, but in general, I want you to assume you're going to get screwed so that you can have a backup plan, so that you really put a lot of thought into these decisions, so that you don't find yourself in a situation because you didn't have this information where you have no recourse, you have no exit plan, you have nothing. You are trapped. You will be trapped if you don't think about this stuff before you make decisions. And men are so good at lying through omission and pretending they're one person and end up being someone else, and using the system that systemic patriarchy to make sure that, they always have the upper hand. And I'm not even mentioning language, job prospects, and all the other things. I'm just talking about the legal part here.
We will never know the truth of those royal relationships, but what we do know is that all three of these women have stayed. She would not only most likely have to leave her children behind, where would she go? She would have no country to return to.
Okay, I'm not going to play the whole clip. Just to summarize, that woman who is a queen, just like Kate, first of all, well, Kate is British. She was giving a whole example of what that woman had to go through in order to become citizens of that country. They literally had to pass a law or like a new clause or something like that because it takes 9 years to get citizenship there. I think in France it's 10 years at least. So they like went around the law and got it for her, but she had to renounce her citizenship to her home country. And here's the thing. A lot of Americans are renouncing their citizenship because of tax stuff. And that is a whole nother topic, but I have even thought about it. Luckily, France has something with the US where you're not supposed to get double taxed unless you make over $100,000. I don't know if I'll ever make that. I don't know if I ever have to worry about that. But in a lot of countries, like if you have a social security number, you have to file taxes for the United States for the rest of your life. They never let you go. And it's crazy because like billionaires and stuff like pay nothing. And then all these people who've immigrated to other countries are like there's whole Facebook groups because they're like, the United States will not let you break up with them. You literally have to renounce your citizenship. So there's actually an incentive for a lot of people to just, if they have no intention of going back to the US, to literally renounce their citizenship because they don't want to be tied to the tax system because it's bonkers. It's bonkers. I still have not figured out how I pay taxes here and I have to file there. I still don't know what I'm doing. I need help, by the way, if anyone knows how to. Oh God, I don't know how to figure it out. Okay, let's say that you don't do that. Let's say you don't have the pressure of, I don't know, marrying into royalty and having, no privacy and all that other stuff. By the way, I am like really worried that woman's dead, Kate. But anyway, say you move to another country because the man has convinced you that you should follow him, because we know that the men almost never move for us. And if they do move for us, this is another video. Actually, a lot of times that does not work out well for us either, because a lot of those men are hobo schedules who will never get a job, never work, and you're literally like the breadwinner and do all the domestic labor, and you have to fill out all of his paperwork for his immigration, and like it is like a nightmare. So just because he might move for you doesn't mean it's going to work out well for you. But in general, women are always expected to move for the man. Always. Always. When people find out that I have a French husband, they assume I moved here for him. And I'm like, no. And they're like, oh. Like it's abnormal that I came here on my own and then ended up meeting him. Because it seems like the majority of women who are here who are married to French men came here because they were, I don't know, maybe they were on vacation and they met in here, and then, she's like, I want to move here because, and again, United States is a complete, shut show. I know why people want to leave. I'm never going to discourage people from leaving. What I am saying is do not tie that to a man. Don't. I swear, when I was trying to figure out my immigration stuff, because it's really hard to get a visa, if you don't have like $30,000 in the bank, well, anyway, all of this is like rooted in like racism and white supremacy culture and all kinds of stuff. And I have like, a very good passport in terms of power. I have white privilege, passport privilege. I'm able-bodied. I have all of these things that are in my favor, and it's really hard for me because I didn't have money. So to ask anyone who's tried to immigrate to a European country, other than the ones who've created the digital nomad stuff, but even those are like regretting it because all the locals hate them because of the housing crisis. But anyway, kind of karma, because it's like the colonizer country like Portugal. And anyway, Frankenstein's monster is coming back for Frankenstein. Anyway, every single time I asked in one of these groups, like, okay, I'm really trying to figure out how do I legally do this, because like there's the tourist visa, but can you work, can you not work? It was so confusing. No one had clear answers. But every single time I posted that question, just marry someone, get a marriage visa. Please stop listening to that advice. You do not want your immigration status tied to a man. If you don't know that man very well, if you don't know his family very well, if you haven't I'm not saying it never worked. I know people it has worked for, but these are the exception, not the rule, because patriarchy is going to patriarch. Then if you add any other intersection there, racism is always tied into all this in terms of if you want to leave, who do you think they're going to side with? And then there's also like ableism. I know that there's a lot of super ableist conditions around immigration that I keep finding out more and more about. But let's just focus on the children part. If you have children with this man, you cannot leave. You cannot leave. So just like divorce court and literally anything in patriarchy, when you have children with a man, he is going to, and he's abusive especially, or not even abusive, although what is abuse, right? These men will use the courts to control you. And they will do it even more so if you're in an international couple, because they have the Hague Convention on their side. And let me go into what that means. So if you want to look this up yourself, you can. And most of the people who follow me are in the US, so just go to the State Department or whatever. It's called the Hague Abduction Convention. And this is literally like how abusers hold women hostage all over the world. And what's interesting is that not everyone has signed this. India will not sign it. And even though India has gotten a lot of bad press lately for being so unbelievably dangerous for women, there is one thing that they're doing right. They didn't sign this in order to protect women and children. So here are the reasons why you could get around it. Let's say you moved to France because you had this amazing experience with this French man, or insert whatever country you're talking about. And then let's say he gets abusive financially, physically, emotionally, in all the ways, right? You are cut off from your family. You're in a country where you probably don't speak the language well enough to understand everything. It's really hard to make friends here. I'm really good at making friends, and it is so hard for me. Part of that is because most people are friends with their kids, their childhood friends and stuff. It just takes a while, right? And even for someone as like unbelievably outgoing as I am, it's still really hard. And then you also have, you're cut off from your family, and unless you have a lot of money, you're probably not visiting them much. This is the other thing. All of this, it makes it way more complicated if you're not rich, right? Most immigrants are not rich. You're dealing with probably controlling in-laws, because if he's controlling and abusive, what do you think his family's like? Where do you think he learned it, right? And even in some of the most healthiest families, a lot of the women who are immigrants here have issues with their in-laws, because a lot of times the son can be very enmeshed with mama, or just the family in general, or whatever. And especially if you come from the US, or at least from my demographic in the US, where like families are not that close. Like, I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but I'm just saying, like, there's a reason why we're obsessed with family, and they're always talking about the family. Everyone's baffled. They're like, what? I don't talk about this all the time. I'm like, oh, it's pure projection. We actually are individualistic society because we're hyper-capitalistic and white supremacist and, misogynistic and all the things. And so everything's about the individual. So the family doesn't really matter, especially like the more you are indoctrinated as a white person, right? Into like white culture. It's about me, not us, right? And so a lot of white people I know are like not nearly as close to their family if they're from the US as people that I've met all over the world, right? I am amazed at how much my husband loves hanging out with his family, right? Like it's a mindset thing, right? And it's a cultural thing. Like spending literally 10 hours at the table eating at Christmas takes some getting used to. I'm like, but what? Just if you know, okay? I've never seen as individualistic of a society as the United States. And it's set up that way. You don't get vacation. You don't get paid vacation. You don't get sick days. There's no maternity care, paternity. Like, here you have 5 weeks off. I don't, because I'm a freelancer. But most jobs, you have 5 weeks off to go hang out with family and friends and whatever. So anyway, a lot of times immigrants come here and they're like, I don't want to spend another Sunday eating with his family. You're going to spend so much time with that family. So if he's abusive, you're probably not going to like that family, but you're going to be spending a lot of time with that family. But if you have a rift between you, you think they're going to side with you or with, the prince baby? Right? Like they're never going to side with you, especially because you probably don't speak the language well enough, and they probably judge you for that and give you crap for that. And so there's all constant miscommunication. And then you're also like not French enough. By the way, I love my in-laws. I hit the jackpot, man. I love hanging out with them. They love me so much. I just hit the jackpot with in-laws in general, but as an immigrant, honestly, I especially when I hear other people's stories, I'm like, oh my God, wow, I really lucked out here. So if you get married to someone abroad and then you have kids with that person, if you want a divorce, that you're going to be facing the whole family and the country of France. Like, it's not, it is not just you versus him. It is literally you versus the law, the whole country, his whole family. And you're doing it in another language. And if you saw Anatomy of a Fall, that woman had to defend herself in not her native language, right? Like, I love that movie so much. I just can't stop thinking about that movie. And so he is probably going to use the Hague Convention to make sure you never leave. And if you do leave, you have to leave your children behind. And if he's abusive, do you really want to do that? No. So you're going to be forced to stay in a country you don't want to be in, where you don't have family, resources, connection, and everything's tied to that. Like, you can't work. Good luck finding a job if you're not fluent in the language. I can't tell you how many men are like, yeah, just come over here. You can work in a coffee shop. One woman told me she literally had a master's degree. And, he was like, just work in a coffee shop. Like, what, bro? Like, men don't care about our careers in general, right? So, okay, back to this. The only way that you can get around this thing is if you can prove that there is a grave risk to the child's return to the place that basically where that child lives or who was born. So that's why if you do have children with a man, you better think long and hard where you want to live and what it's going to look like you living there, because where that child is born and the beginning of his life or his or her life or their life, all of this is dependent on that. Now, the child can object, but only if it's a certain age, right? You think they're going to listen to a 3-year-old who's like, I want to be with mommy? They'll be like, yeah. They're going to be like Woody Allen, like, she convinced him that I'm whatever. God, I hate that man. The only other way is if you get permission from your abuser to leave, then you can go. How many abusers do you think are going to let you do that? And so there's all these exceptions, but let me just explain something to you. This is a really great article. I'm sure there's more. And again, I am not a lawyer. I don't know everything about this. I haven't had to deal with this myself, but I have seen so many stories in these Facebook groups and in real life of women who are like, yep, I want to go home. I'm homesick, but I got kids. So this is called the Hague Convention on Child Abduction has a domestic violence problem. And by the way, the number one tactic of men who abuse women is to isolate them. What better way than to take them from their country, their community, their language, their family, their everything they know, and put them on the other side of an ocean. And then also they can't go back much if they don't have money, lots of their own money, which will be very hard for them to earn in another country. So isolation and then having the Hague Convention holding you hostage? Please think about this stuff, y'all. Don't be like, oh my God, I'm planning your French wedding. Think about this first. So originally this thing was created to protect children. But we know patriarchy and the men who write laws. We also know that anytime like people don't understand things. So when it was drafted, the convention was laden with an assumption that when a father found himself losing in custody back, he would try to take the children away. So they're like, yeah, let's do this so men can't take their children away. However, in reality, they're assuming that men are the ones who are immigrating for a woman. Like, I could have told, why didn't they ask me? I could have told you that men don't do this. Men do not immigrate for women unless they're homosexual in general. The current figures reveal that 73% of the cases, it is the mother who takes the child away. And allegedly 91% of these mothers are victims of domestic violence. But because of the language of this thing, it doesn't offer any substantive protection for mothers fleeing from domestic violence with their children. So it was passed unanimously in 1980 with over 103 signatures. But guess what? India is one of the people who's countries that's like, no, we know what this looks like for us. They consulted experts around domestic violence, and that's why they decided not to sign. So habitual residence is defined as the place where the child last lived with both parents. So again, be careful where you have this child. The officials of Women and Child Development Ministry stated signing the convention would be to the disadvantage of Indian women and that they were far more cases of Indian women escaping bad marriages abroad and returning to the safety of their homes in India than non-Indian women who are married to Indian men leaving India with their children. In other words, Indian women who move abroad are way more vulnerable. It seems like India may have been one of the only countries that realized that women are more vulnerable when they move abroad. Like, how hard was this to figure out? Like, do the people who write these laws, either they're intentionally doing this, or the ones who are like, we're going to protect women, and then it has the opposite effect? Do y'all know men? I literally could have told you this. Did you ask immigrants? Like, God, my guess would be that they actually knew exactly what they're doing. But let's say they were just dumb. Like, how dumb do you have to be to not see that it's men? That it's women who are the immigrants. Usually following men, because that's what we're supposed to do. He's the motorcycle, we are the sidecar. He is the sun, and we are just orbiting around him. You really think that a lot of men are just like, oh, you have your dream to go, your job is so important, I will uproot everything and follow you. Men don't do that. Most men, an evolved man who works on himself and really loves her would do that, but most men don't do that. Most men would never do that unless they are gold-digging hobo schedules, and you got yourself a bigger problem. So one of the biggest problems with this whole thing is that they don't define what grave risk is. They leave out domestic violence. According to this exception, the return of a child may be refused where there is grave risk that his or her return would expose the child to physical or psychological harm or otherwise place the child in an intolerable position. Now, but look at this. It would seem obvious that risk arising from domestic violence, of which children may be the direct or indirect victims, should be included in this exception. However, the term grave risk is not defined in the convention. And while it has been interpreted in a variety of ways, the usual interpretation has been narrow to provide the protection of the child from only substantial irreparable harm, such as war, famine, and disease. Like, I love that they see, like, these things are the biggest, these things are very big, especially right now, right? I mean, look what's happening in Gaza, look what's happening all over the world. Like, I'm not downplaying these things, but I would argue that the biggest threat to all women and children is always going to be men. And the fact that they are just like, yeah, these are the biggest threats always. Again, there's plenty of exceptions, like what's happening now. But you should always assume that men are going to be the biggest threat when there's not a genocide happening. Which even genocides are men calling those shots. Anyway, I'm getting so worked up right now. Domestic violence is not per se termed to be grave risk. It is left to judicial discretion to decide on the severity of domestic violence. To categorize. Look at this. Okay, this is so ridiculous. In most circumstances where there is evidence that a child's return will place them in danger, courts, rather than refusing the return of the child, have imposed non-enforceable undertakings that place conditions on the return of the child in an effort to assure their safety. These efforts to minimize the risk based on by a large false promise by abusers. Yeah, of course. And they're unenforceable, and they're to no avail. And then this part right here, sorry, it's not highlighted. Not only is it not, is what grave risk, explicitly stated in that language, the convention places emphasis on fathers' rights, but none on their responsibilities. Could we summarize what all women dealing with divorce, not all, most women dealing with divorce are going through? The father have all these rights, but no responsibility. They're not a lot of times, unless they're literally being forced to, don't pay child support, don't do anything unless they're forced to. Mothers, particularly protective mothers, are left without financial support or maintenance for the basic requirements of their children, such as school fees and all the endless things. You are just so unbothered by everything I do, I swear. So basically, in short, the convention has evolved into a tool for abusers engaged in a pattern of harassment. The convention is being abused to reunite women and children escaping violence back with their abusers, criminalizing mothers and frequently resulting in child custody loss. So if you are afraid you're going to die at the hands of your partner, and you want to flee, you can't bring your kids. And if you try, you could be charged with kidnapping. So again, back to like Kate or any women, like imagine, like it is so hard to leave a marriage for a lot of women because of finances, because of social pressure, because of childcare, because of all these things that I talk about all the time. But if you put that in an international context and you have children, you are more likely to get so screwed and your life literally ruined, if not taken, by these men because they convinced you that life would be so much better somewhere else, cut off from everything you know. And I haven't even gone into language and culture and friends and community and family and all the things that you leave behind. This is just the legal aspect I'm talking about. Don't be fooled by these men. I do believe in love. I hope that couple that went viral for that, I hope that it works out, but I also hope that she is not the one who is expected to give up everything. And if she does and wants to, that she is legally and financially protected in every single decision she makes. And I hope that for any woman who moves for a man, or any woman who has a man move for you, you better protect yourself, because those little hobos are going to suck the life and finances out of you. I think he's worried. He was like, what was that? It never comes down to like, why doesn't she just leave? It's never that simple. Even the Queen of Denmark can't leave. You think an immigrant with not much money can? Don't believe the fairy tales, y'all. Protect yourself. Your life and the life of any children you may have depends on you being smart, not, just trusting love. Leap and the net will appear. No, it won't. Not for women. Not for women. There is no net unless you put it there.